So, yeah, I'll say hi. Hi, Kris. Welcome to the What Not Why podcast. Thanks for being a guest today. I'm going to let the audience hear from you what you'd like to share about your bio, your profile, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on. My name is Kris Mahler. I'm currently in Canmore, Alberta. I grew up actually in in the east of Canada, in Toronto, but now I've been living out here in the west for the last 15 years. And the reason for that is I moved out to kind of pursue a passion of mine, which is downhill ski racing, and more specifically, recently, ski cross. So I actually ski for Team Canada. I'm an athlete on the team, have been for the last 9 years now, and coming towards the end of my career from an athletic standpoint, and that's kind of where the coaching world maybe trickles in a little bit. So excited to explore that, and that's a little bit about me.
Wow. So, extreme sports. I mean, I've been to Canmore, I've been to Banff. Those are some mountains. Tell me, what does it take to just the speed? What speed do you reach when you're downhill skiing?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up racing Alpine. Maybe I should give a little bit of like more of a back story on it. But Alpine, for those that don't know, it's like you're racing through the panels or the flags, and it's one at a time against the clock. The sport that I do now is ski cross, and that's head-to-head racing against three other athletes. So that's over some different terrain, so varying terrain, whether that be jumps or banks or big negative turns. Basically, the idea is the first one to get to the bottom wins, but you're racing three other athletes. And the speeds for that generally average, I would say, would probably be around like 80 to 90 kilometers an hour. Would be like, yeah, kind of what we're reaching. In Alpine, they reach a little bit faster. In the downhill, they can get up to like 130, 140 sometimes on those downhill events. But yeah, it's definitely a fast-paced sport, and lots can happen.
Wow, yeah, no kidding. Any big injuries?
Yeah, I've had three big injuries in terms of like pinnacle moments in my career. Looking back now, about 8 years ago, had a big shoulder injury. So I got hit going off of a jump, landed upside down, and a big dislocation, and then nerve damage and needed surgery. A few years after that, ACL, so very common in the sport for knee injuries. So I did my time there, and then most recently, just 2 years ago, I actually broke my neck at the C7 level. So luckily, I'm still standing. I have full capability of my body, which is an incredible gift. But yeah, I did break my neck, and that took a little bit of time to come back from as well.
Okay, so the reason I ask is because the mental strength that you must have to get back on those skis and get back into the game after such injury is phenomenal. Like, I mean, that in itself is huge. I've had three knee surgeries and I won't run anymore. Like, I just won't do it.
Yeah.
So that's huge mental strength. So what does it take? Like, what is that thing that you have that not a lot of people have?
That's an interesting question, and probably one that I don't have a perfect answer for, even at this point in time. And I've been asked it a lot, and I've asked it of myself quite a bit. And tying it back to this world a little bit, the coaching world, it was quite interesting because I'd always thought it was like going back to my why. So my why in terms of like, why am I racing? Why do I want to do what I do? Why do I get up every day? Why do I come back from these massive injuries? And through going through this coaching, kind of shifting that and coming maybe at it from like a what question, which is interesting because I never really realized it, but that why question does go to the past a little bit, whereas the what can be a little bit more present and future focused, which was interesting. And I think really the answer lies probably a little bit in both of those questions, in a why and a what, to some degree. Um, for me, and it's probably like a multitude of different things. I definitely have a desire to like prove to myself a certain level of accomplishment. And for me, if I look forward, I mean, the what right now is Olympics. So it's the one piece of my athletic resume that I haven't checked off. When you look at athletes of this caliber, um, it's actually kind of uncommon not to be in a sport this long and not to have an Olympics under your belt, because we run those 4-year cycles. And again, through some of the injuries and just basically life getting in the way, I just didn't make an Olympics. But on the other side of that, I've got multiple World Cup wins, which a lot of athletes don't have. And so I've talked to athletes, and they're sitting there being an Olympian, but they wished they had a World Cup win. So it's interesting how there's varying factors there, and I think each athlete has those pieces as to why they started, which keeps them going, as well as those pieces that are pulling them down the road a little bit. So that was more of those what questions. And so for me, my why is I just grew up loving skiing. I never even intended it to be this massive career. I never intended my parents never got us into ski racing because they thought we were going to go, to this level. I just started because I loved it, and the progression kept going because of that. And so again, it was like it started because of that why, and that why is still there. But the what's and those little cherry on top, or the icing on the cake of the Olympics, gold medals, a little bit of proving it, whether it's to yourself, whether it's to others, that definitely keeps me going as well. But there's some nuances in there that are kind of interesting to explore.
Yeah, so I just find it fascinating because it's and as you get older, I'm sure that it's not as easy as it was when you were young, and limber, and so
Yeah.
this pursuit now is it an Olympian pursuit for you? This new form of skiing, you called it, what did you call it?
Ski cross, yeah,
Ski
yeah.
cross.
So I've been on the ski cross team now this will be my 10th season on the World Cup team, on the Canadian team. So, yeah, and this season specifically is an Olympic year. So in February we'll have the Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina, and that's a massive goal for me. And ironically, not just making a Canadian team, an Olympic team. If I'm going, which I'm in my body, I believe I am,
Yeah.
I'm going there to win, which is definitely within the capabilities.
Well, I believe it. I think you're going to win. I'm sold. That's great. Good. And so, what brought you then to this type of coaching? This, sort of more of a mindset coach, or, you know, executive leadership, whatever you want to call it. What brought you
Mhm.
here?
Yeah, I mean, inevitably, like you mentioned, like as I'm getting older, I'm starting to look at like maybe next steps in life, and it's weird to think about retirement at 30 years old, but that's a reality in athletics. So yeah, I think, and that neck break 2 years ago was like a massive. Yeah, I definitely didn't know if I was going to come back from that. I should kind of bring that up a little bit. Like, yes, I've come back, but there was definitely a period of probably, I would say, about a year, definitely 6 months, where I was like, wasn't sure, and I was definitely leaning away from it. Just felt like life was pulling me in different directions, and I guess I just wasn't really sure what I wanted. And through that period of a lot of like unclarity, I did some exploring and looked at maybe what I would enjoy doing if I were to retire. And this realm started to come up quite a bit. So that area of psychology, personal development. I mean, it's something that I was just doing naturally with myself in terms of my own brand as an athlete. And I didn't really even consider it as a career, to be honest, until I started to look into it and understand that there was a path maybe out there for it. So yeah, basically, when I did make the decision to come back to racing, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to racing, but I want to add some fuel to these other components of my life that I still enjoy, or I might enjoy it down the line. And this was a major component of that. So I made a commitment last year that I was going to look for a course, something like this. And yeah, this one, I did a ton of research as I do, and this one just seemed like the best fit for me. And I think it was that performance word that was sitting there. It was like performance is like a framework that can be applied to different sectors. And I think that's what I enjoyed as well, was I was like, you know what, I've really taken a deep dive into sport and athletics. And while I probably always have that component of my life, I do actually want to learn from other areas. So maybe that business side of performance, the life side of performance. And so, yeah, it was just an opportunity to kind of diversify, I guess, a little bit of that performance mindset.
Mm. Well, I think I heard you mention earlier something about, one of the things that drives you is really discovering what you're capable of, or your potential, like what could you actually achieve in your career physically as a skier. But that is part of the mental sort of resilience, but also the mental strength that we develop in this type of like coaching, right? The psychology of coaching. And I wonder, for you, somebody who's been through severe injury and come back, and what do you think is the, like, of course there's physical skill, but how much is it physical and how much is it mental when you're in a sport like yours?
I think the differentiating factor is mental, 100%. And I say that because at this level, everyone's doing the physical. Everyone's nailing that component of it, right? And whether it's performance, so if we're looking at like winning medals, everyone can run this fast, jump this high, push this much weight. But where you set yourself apart is 100% in your mental capacity. And it's interesting that we still talk about them as like two separate things, but really they are one, and they relate, and they're integrated so much at a level that I don't even understand. And this is probably why I love exploring it so much, because I see those connections, or at least I feel those connections, but I'm still trying to understand them and to be able to apply them at, a sporting level. And this is just kind of like a vehicle, I guess, for me to explore that avenue even more. So yeah, specifically coming back from injury, I mean, yeah, like, it's hard to put a number on it. I want to say it's 50-50, because it's like, but it's like 100% of each, if that makes sense. You need to have the physical, you need to get back to where you're at. But man, as I'm thinking about it, maybe even the mental's more, because I've come back, and done more extraordinary things, better results in what would be considered a less physical state. So like for instance, my ACL had a hamstring graft. When I test that in the lab, I still test about 50% difference left to right, which is a massive, like we're looking for like 25% is usually a red flag. So to see a 50% difference on a World Cup athlete raises a lot of red flags. I say that, I went back, when I came back from my knee injury, my first race back I PB'd, my second race I won my first World Cup. So from a physical standpoint, it didn't make any sense. But that's where the mental side came in. And so, yeah, I would say most people have the physical pretty figured out, but the mental is where it can make a difference, and it affects.
Well, I've spent a lot of my time studying the psychology of motivation, the psychology of, a goal theory, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and, if you've read Angela Duckworth's work on grit,
Mm-hmm.
there is certainly a difference in what you said. Like if you match people up physically, the difference is often the mental. And also when I think about, studies that I've read where you put sensors on someone's body, a downhill skier, like a slalom skier, for example, and they visualize their run, physiologically, their body will respond as though they're in the run. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like incredible. So imagine your mental strength, what it has done for your physical rehabilitation. When you really want something, and then hearing you talk about your why. If I think about goal theory in the sense of, what keeps people coming back, they call it episodic goal pursuit. This start, stop, whether that's injury or something else that derails you, you come back. What
Mm-hmm.
keeps people coming back is that, what's this about for me?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you can't name it, it's in you, right? It lives in you. So that's really cool to see that in action in you. And so, what do you think is the opportunity for the type of coaching that we're doing at the Academy?
Ooh, that's a big question. What's the opportunity?
Yeah, for you and what you're doing, like your future.
Oh, for me specifically. Yeah, I mean, I just finished the course and was blown away by the content. To be honest, like I said, I did quite a bit of research, but it was the content that I got was even more than I anticipated, which was amazing. And going through it, I was like, man, it would be amazing if every single one of my coaches had this kind of training, because I think it would be phenomenal in the sporting world to have this level. And again, I guess I view it, it's not the end all be all. It's not the only way to coach, but it's definitely like a tool in your toolbox. And it's quite a powerful one at that. So for me, definitely one that I'm going to be like a muscle that I'm going to be flexing and utilizing. And I mean, yeah, I've launched a coaching business. So I've always, or I shouldn't say always, for the last 8 years, I've been a performance or personal trainer. So I have the physical side as that kind of coach. And I've always dreamed of like expanding that business. And this was a perfect opportunity to do that. So I launched now the performance mindset side of the business as well. Because oftentimes when I was working with clients on the physical component, we'd have similar conversations like this because they would be often coming to me with injuries or setbacks or whatever. And it was, like you said, that mental side that allowed them to kind of to get through those tough days and to keep pushing. So yeah, this just like seamlessly fit into that and has allowed me to expand that side of the business and been, yes, I mean, selfishly, it's like every time I go through a coaching session, I'm learning more about myself, even through someone else and through their experience. And the nice thing is you're able, with this style of coaching, you're able to kind of sit back and you're asking questions and you're allowing the client to guide themselves in the exploring, and you're seeing a different perspective, which is also for me, one of my, a piece that I love. I love seeing the world from different perspectives. So yeah, it's been a great learning opportunity from that side for sure.
Well, when I think about the other, like we've had quite a few athletes actually come through our program, some Olympians, some Guinness World Record breakers. We
Really?
have a woman, yeah, she's really cool, a woman in weightlifting, I think. Um, and what I notice is the common thread, I think, is this, well, what is it? Well, so here's what they've said to me. That the way that we're coaching, the mindset or the psychology of coaching, um, the observation of someone. So evoking awareness is a big part of how athletes get better. Like that's why the best have coaches, right? Michael Jordans of the world have coaches because they can observe themselves when they're, going for the goal or going for the whatever they do in basketball. I don't know, going for the the
Yeah.
points. so so you can't, if you can't physically observe yourself, you don't really know what can be improved. So I remember one of the athletes when I spoke to him said when he would observe the athlete and let them know about posture or positioning, or maybe your foot was dragging a little, or you were creating some resistance with the way that your body was positioned. That information was so powerful, but it's not information that we can come from ourselves. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
that observation that you offer from an objective point of view, that's really mirroring and witnessing someone else, is they've all said is incredibly powerful in what they do in their sport.
Mm-hmm.
And especially one woman who was she was the coach, she is, I assume, a coach for a collegiate team of basketball, women's basketball. And she said when she took the program and she started to use the strategies with the team in her coaching, she said her team completely changed. The way that they came together and the way that they collaborated with each other on the court changed. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything about them changed, and they were winning. And I don't know if they had the winning record before, so I can't speak to that. But she said it was really powerful in their performance, but also in the way that they were just speaking to each other.
Right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Like in terms of, what is the power of shifting? Because most coaches don't do that, from what I understand. I
Yeah.
mean, most coaches, so I don't know, speak to that. What do you think?
Yeah. There's a lot there. I guess maybe where I'll start is maybe I'll start at the top level. So at the highest level, and because I feel like I can speak to it because I've worked through it, but as an
Mhm.
athlete at the top level, and my sport's interesting, and I'm sure it's very similar in other sports, but it's evolving so fast in the sense that as as we go about producing our sport, we're actually like figuring it out as we go. Like it hasn't been done before at the level that we've done it at. It keeps getting faster every year. There's different jumps every year. There's different equipment every year, right? So no one in history has ever been able to put all of those pieces together and been like, well, this is what you need to do to succeed. Like there's no formula. It's like everyone has to figure it out. And what this style of coaching does, it is allows that professional, that athlete, and that coach to figure that out with the athlete being the guy, their own, like they know where they're going and they just need to figure it out. Like, I mean, I come back to that book, The Inner Game of Tennis, and it looks at basically at this principle. And I think, like, if you read that book and understand that psychology and then be able to apply this kind of coaching, it allows you to mold and work with that style of psychology and then that style of performance. And I want to say again, I've never been sitting on the coaching side of a high performance athlete, but what I see and what I interpret is it can be a bit scary. Because, and where I'm coming from this is, as I go through my coaching sessions, sometimes you get that loop with your client. You know, they go over here, then they go over here, then they come back over here, and it's like they don't seem to be moving in a linear progression. The nice thing is we have a framework that eventually we help. That's the point of the coach, is to help them and to guide them along that process. But I sense that, you know, with my coaches or with coaching in the physical world, they want it to be quite linear. You know, they want you to develop this skill set, then you get faster, then you develop the next one, you get and then you win the medal. Life's not like that. You know, life's messy. You got to try out different things. You got to build this piece up and then break down another piece. And eventually, through that process of learning, you develop a very strong foundation, which allows for, you know, building a team like that coach you were talking about, having like this really strong connection because they've been through that process of figuring out what works. And it's not just one thing that they're building on top of another. So I think that's what I see for this coaching at the sport performance level. Is it would take the coaches going through it and understanding how this coaching works and getting comfortable with that process, getting comfortable a little bit with that bouncing around with the athlete going, hey, let me try this out. And it's funny because now that I've done this coaching, I kind of like, again, I can't be my own coach, but I kind of go through a similar process and I just go, well, let me see what it feels like. And I try and, as opposed to just making it a linear progression, it becomes a little bit more, whole. And you kind of operate from a different space in that. So that's one side of it.
Oh, there's many sides, yeah. But it really sounds like the opportunity to co-create the experience with the athlete.
Mm-hmm. I think the individual learns it just at a deeper level, which allows them. It's this buy-in from both people that it's like, hey, maybe the start will be a little bit slower. Like I come back to one of the videos that you gave us in the coaching, and it was a coach that had this framework, and it was about golf. They were basically teaching someone that, like, two people that never golfed before. And I was just blown away at that. And it was interesting to watch because the person that was like the golf pro that told them what to do, hold the club like this, stand like this, swing like this, like they moved quicker on the front end, but then you saw them hit kind of a ceiling, and they didn't have that intuitive nature. Again, coming back to that inner game of tennis, they didn't have that intuitive nature of feeling. So it almost created a ceiling with them. And then they were reliant on the instructor, or they maybe would have, if we would have taken it further, they might not have gotten to that highest level because each individual has their own unique path. Whereas you saw this coach kind of evoking awareness through the process. It took a little bit longer. They had to feel it out a little bit. But once there was that trust and that respect was there, and that person then trusted in themselves, they just took off. And I just didn't see that ceiling there. So I feel like for the individual, which I think is the goal, it would be much more impactful to have this style applied. Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you go back to that video, the woman was one of the two who were learning to golf. Her energy for golf after being coached by John Whitmore was the coach.
Yeah.
Was so much more enthusiastic than the other person who had the pro, who was being told what to do at every second of the process. So yeah, it's really cool.
Which is, what that brings up in me, and that's an interesting point, is that enthusiasm. We talked a little bit about why and coming back and injury. So if that person gets injured, that enthusiasm, they remember that. And I think if you're developed through this process, it it then allows for that why, that enjoyment. You come back to that in those moments.
Hmm.
So this all ties together. So it's it's interesting how it's kind of all interrelated.
Mm-hmm. And how important is it at your level, especially, to have someone believe in you? Like, you know, the kind of coaching that we advocate at the academy is all about believing the person is whole, capable, and resourceful, right? So if I have that mindset, I'm really, truly, my energy is, you can do this. I believe in you. So how important is it at your level?
Yeah, I'm smiling because if I were to show you my results, you go, why, well, you must really like racing at home. Like you have home court advantage.
Mm.
In our sport, I the only time I get to ski at home is for that race. And the run looks nothing like I've ever skied it before. So there's no home court advantage. The advantage there is because my family and my friends are sitting at the bottom of that course and they believe in me, and that energy that you talk about, I can feel.
Mm. Mm.
So 100%. I mean, again, these are the pieces of that mind body connection that I think we still don't fully understand, but there's immense power there. So yeah, I would say it's incredibly a powerful component and yeah, incredibly useful.
Yeah, I would imagine just yeah, that energy that you feel, and that's the kind of energy that I think a coach can actually offer someone when they come at this work, like you coaching a young child starting to ski, and your belief in them and your energy for that, for their success and for what they can do. That makes all the difference in the world compared to, do it this way. No, do it that way. No, here's how you should, position yourself. And it's all from someone else. And it kind of makes you feel like, well, what, you don't think I can do this?
Mm-hmm.
This very different energy. I
Mm-hmm.
love that book though, The Inner Game of Tennis. There's the Inner Game of Golf as well, and it's a really interesting perspective, especially for an athlete, to
Yeah.
read these books. Yeah, yeah. So, what was your biggest takeaway from, like, maybe a surprise from the what you learned in the programs?
Ooh, my biggest takeaway. Hmm. Let's see here. I guess I guess the power of a question.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it seems simple, but and I don't want to like. There's a lot of takeaways, but yeah, I was surprised that I would be able to have like an hour long call potentially or longer, but like, let's just say an hour long call where in theory I could just be asking questions, and I'm still blown away that the calls that the clients seem to have the most breakthroughs with, I talk the least. So as
Mm.
a it's them, and you're just adding that little bump here and there, evoking awareness in a different direction. And the more you can do that without judgment, yeah, the better it is for them. So yeah, the power of a question, I was blown away at what it's done for me and for other people as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the difference between a closed and open question is actually one of the parts of the program that most people are surprised about,
Yeah.
because we don't think about it. It's not like it's that complicated, but we don't think about it if no one calls our attention to it. Right? The power of a closed versus open, or open versus closed question, and that is it makes all the difference.
Hmm.
This the what versus the are you, do you, could you, would you, these closed-ended questions that lead to yes or no.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What else? Like, because I'm curious about, like, the kinds of coaching that you've received in your career.
Hmm.
What would you pinpoint as like an opportunity to make a difference?
Like for me to make a difference, or the
Well, like, if you think about what you've learned in this coaching program and you
yeah
think about the coaches that you've had,
yeah.
what are some ways that they could have maybe taken a different approach, slightly tweaked, a little shift based on what you've learned in the program? Is there anything that you think a coach could have offered you?
I mean, yeah, the two pieces coming back to those questions, I think like evoking awareness and allowing me to explore it, especially for who I am as an athlete. If I, I love learning and dissecting what I'm doing at a very like detailed level with it. So for me, yeah, exploring that and not just having the coach be like, well, this is how it's done. Even though they maybe have an intention of where we want to go. That's maybe that, that is inevitably what their skill sets are. That's fine. But allowing me to explore that with them and to, I'll grasp it at a deeper level, and I know I'll give even more effort if I can like truly believe in it. And I feel like if I've explored it with them and I land there, through that exploration, I'm just able to give a different kind of energy. So for sure, yeah, that those level of questions, those open-ended questions, evoking awareness, yeah, not just like jumping straight to a conclusion or trying to tell us where to go. Sometimes sometimes it is obvious, and it's kind of funny because in sport, it's probably the same in every sport, but the same things that if I were to take you out skiing today and you said I've never skied before, the same things that we're going to work on are the same things that I'm working on now skiing 30 years later. I'm just looking at it at such a detailed and doing it at speed and over jumps, and the factors are a little bit different, but the same things that we're working on are the same, right? So what does that mean for the athlete? Well, yeah, they kind of have to figure out how to place themselves in that environment and to master it, and that really can only come from them. It can't really come from the coach. So yeah, those questions are immensely powerful. um, what else would be, I mean, I think all of it. Like it would be so. I think it would just be such an incredible, like holding space. I think that would be an incredible. I mean, we talked about validating and like believing in someone. That's a piece that I think gets lost sometimes for sure. Um, I think most coaches would be surprised at just what kind of power they would hold if they just, yeah, hey, I believe in you. Like you could just say that at the start of a race, and that would be huge for an athlete. For a person. I mean, it's athletes are just people too, right? We're just again, we're taking everything, we're just trying to make performance out of it, but the same principles stay the same. So, yeah, I think every component of this course would be valuable and would be utilized. I don't there wasn't a piece where I, finished a session and was like, nah, probably not useful. So like literally, I think every coach, every sport performance coach could go through this course and they would take just as much as I did from it.
Mm.
Yeah.
As you were speaking, for some reason I went to resistance, and the physical resistance that you may encounter in an athlete, maybe not you, but an athlete who's learning your sport and feeling some fear and buckling up or, tightening up, which increases the risk of injury, right? Or whatever it might do. Like it's the same when we take people through their mental game and we walk through, okay, so what might stand in your way? What's at risk for you to stay the same or to sit in fear? It just sounds like there's so many parallels to working through our resistance and mental resistance and physical resistance, and the
Mhm.
opportunity there to to experience your full potential means you gotta but I think the mental game is first, right? If you're
Right.
especially if you're feeling fear.
Yeah. I think also what I'm kind of realizing as you're talking is the mental game is a lot more individualistic in the sense that, like I said, I think everyone can run this fast, push this most weight. And I think that's what coaches look at in the sport world. And I think they'd be better suited to work with a variety of people if they had this skill set, because that mental game is different. I'm showing up maybe scared today, whereas this other person is showing up totally confident. Well, if they just coach us on like, we'll just go, they're those are going to work very differently. And again, if the goal of the coach, which is hopefully what the coach wants, is to help and produce performance in their athletes, this skill set would allow them, I think, to work with a lot more, like a variety of different people, a variety of different athletes, because they're all, like I said, they're all coming to them strong, they're all coming to them fast. But again, what's that differentiating factor? And I think, yeah, that's probably what this course really has the capability of doing, is working with different people at different states. You
Yeah, well, you're showing up to where someone is at
know.
that present time. You're not making an assumption that they're ahead of the game. You're not making the assumption they know more than they do. You're really
Hmm.
stopping and saying, like when I speak to leaders and I tell them the most powerful question you can ask is, what do you already know about this? When someone is asking you for advice, it's kind of like that when if you're coaching an athlete, like, where do you think you're at with this?
Right.
How are you showing up? And work from there as opposed to working from assumptions.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny how the evoking awareness for the athlete would evoke awareness for the coach. And we massively, yeah, because
well,
there's a lot of
no,
assumptions being made.
right? Like I tell leaders that all the time. The more that you know about where your direct reports are in their own thinking, the more
Hmm.
powerful you are because you have so much more information at your fingertips,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
huge.
do the same.
Yeah,
I think it's George Mumford. He wrote the book The Mindful Athlete. Have you read
yeah,
that?
yeah. It was one of the first books I read when I joined the national team. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. I just thought I was fascinated. I haven't read the whole book, but I was fascinated by what I did read,
yeah,
um, and the work that he's done. So I really believe that there's so much you could do with this kind of coaching and bringing that into your realm. Um, so what do you think is the biggest kind of barrier to coaches? Well, here, let me put it this way. Leaders in organizations are promoted based typically on their subject matter expertise, what they know, how they know it, and what they know well. And I wonder if it's the same, and so there's an assumption that because you know a lot about something, you're a subject matter expert, you also know how to communicate, how to motivate, how to be with people and lead people.
right.
And I think that's the most, you know, well, it's a detrimental assumption to an organization because if you put a leader in ahead of a team that doesn't know how to connect with the team and motivate the team won't perform, and then the company doesn't perform. So it's a ripple effect in the organization.
Hmm.
What's the barrier to? And I don't know if there is a barrier. Maybe there isn't. But if coaches are not getting trained like this to play the mental game, to empower the mental strength of an athlete, not just the physical, but the mental strength of an athlete. What's the barrier and what, if there is one, and how do you get around it?
Yeah, my mind goes. I mean, in the sporting world, it's interesting because there's kind of two worlds within this area, and that's true professional sports, and then we'll say like Olympic level amateur sports, just for the ease of differentiating the two. In the amateur world, it all like if we were having this conversation and you were trying to promote the product and hey, like this is what they would just be lost until you said the words, "This is how much it costs," and then they would be like, "Well, we can or cannot afford that." It's a
That's
it,
so
it
cool.
always it's one of the first conversations that they have. They have a really hard time understanding how an investment like this will pay off, and they're worried about where to put money, and a lot of it comes from government funding, and it's tied up here, there, and everywhere. So for sure, money would be one of the first things that they would bring up. I don't, me personally, I don't think that's a massive issue. If I look at it in the sense that, like, I think, there's no reason why coaches couldn't go do this, find some funding for it, much like I did. Um, in the professional world, because money's not necessarily an issue, I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to start to see a lot of professional teams, mental performance coaches, even just regular coaches take this on, and we already have. I mean, yeah, like you said, the Michael Jordans of the world, like his coach, inevitably, I truly believe any of the greats that we know about, they've had these individuals behind the scenes, or maybe in the spotlight with them, but it can't be done as an individual, and you need that proper support network. And any of the massively successful athletes have coaches that I know have these skill sets in them to some degree, whether or not they've taken this training specifically or they just understand it at a slightly different level. I think for sure that's what they're doing. So money's not necessarily an issue on the professional side, but it's just not mainstream yet. So that resistance is just, well, that's not what everyone's doing. So why should I do it? And people just they're comfortable with what they know, right? And again, this is a different dynamic, a different world. And I think people are looking around right now to see who's going to pick it up. You know, whose job is it? Is it the head coach? Is it, you know, a sports performance director? Is it, I don't know, who is it? Is it everyone? So I think more and more, I think what's happening is individuals like myself, athletes are really starting to talk about it. They're starting to take notice of it, and it's going to take those athletes moving into positions of coaching roles that have this desire, that know that this component of performance is so crucial, that you're just going to eventually see it topple, and everyone's going to start to do it. And then it's just going to become mainstream again, you know? So I think it's a little bit of a time thing, and anyone that's ahead of the curve is already starting to do it. And the people that I talk with are all about it and learning at it from different angles. So yeah, I think it's just natural in humans. Some are going to have that uptake and others are not. And eventually a new generation is going to bring forth what they think is beneficial.
Oh, my brain is spinning. You're making me think. We have a young man in our community who is in the leadership program because he works for an organization who they're sports agents in the US and mostly
Right.
basketball players dealing with high profile athletes. And the agent that he's shadowing, who his mentor is an ICF coach.
Right.
And he didn't put the agent didn't put him in the program. He said, I put myself in this program so that I can be and talk to him the way he talks to athletes.
Right.
And so that's one thing that I was thinking. But the other thing was, in organizational or corporate life, there used to be organizational psychologists. And that the word psychologist tends to have a bit of a stigma attached to it. And so if you say organizational coach, there was more openness to it. And I wonder, because you've had sports psychologists in like in sports, there's always been sports psychologists. And I wonder if maybe there's the same shift toward, you know, what would you call them? A mental coach? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Mental
Yeah,
performance coach, or yeah. Yeah.
right. Performance coach.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
mean, yeah, this is the world that we're living in. I think people are trying out, it's a little bit of the Wild West. People are trying out different terms, seeing where it lands. I mean, as I develop a business, this is a part of like the marketing that I'm doing as well, right? Because it's like, well, I know what niche I want to land in, but what do people like? What are people able to digest? Do they like the sport performance coach? Do they like performance coach? Do they like sports psychologist? Like what term? Obviously, there's some, yeah, I can only call myself certain things, but yeah, these words have certain weight to them. So I think that's probably part of it too, in terms of the resistance. It was funny because I was cognizant about how I even like told my team or my coaches that I was taking like this kind of course,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, well, because I was looked at as, well, you're the athlete and I'm the coach, and now I'm getting training as a coach. And so what does that mean for the energy dynamic or the hierarchy of it? So yeah, it's funny. It's all these pieces are interrelated.
Hmm. I find that exciting. That's cool. You're kind of breaking ground.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm noticing the time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have one more question, and that is a question that I ask everybody who comes on the podcast. What is one question, if you had the opportunity to ask the universe anything and get an answer, something that's personal to you, or just life meaning, whatever, philosophical. What's the question that you would ask the universe
If I got the answer,
if you could get the answer? Yeah.
I'd probably ask, how do I drop my ego?
Oh, good one.
Yeah, that's probably what I would ask.
Yeah. Yeah. The ego is always in the way, isn't it?
Ego is an interesting one. Yeah, it is for sure. I think it would, yeah, there'd be like a level of connectedness. I think that would come out of that. I feel like you can find it at times, but yeah, the ego is an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting, actually. Well, thank you so much for this time. And if there's a place where people can connect with you, we will give you, we'll put them in the show notes, like how to connect with you. But if there's, do you have a website or something that you want to direct people to now?
Yeah, well, my Instagram, Kris Mahler, is probably the best way. I share, yeah, my journey through the Olympics there for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, if anyone wants to personally connect, I can give my email as well, and yeah, more than open.
Perfect. So we'll put some, contact information in the notes. And I want to wish you the best of luck and hope that all your dreams come true, the Olympic ones and others.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for developing the school and this framework and everything. It's been phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to creating a career out of it.
Yeah, me too. I hope we stay in touch. I'd love to see how you develop this angle with your, in sport. I think it'd be great.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.